Yeah. So he says, "Go and get your husband." And she says, "Sir, I don't have a husband." And he says, "You've spoken well. In fact, you've had five." But the word that he uses so it's recorded in Greek, but it was originally spoken more than likely in Aramaic or Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
The Samaritans would have kept Hebrew since they stayed in Israel, and they weren't influenced by Babylon to change more to Aramaic version. And so the word that he actually uses is Baal, which is master. And, we were talking about her getting water at the later in the day. So getting water at that time was a big deal, right? You would have to go in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and get it for the day, and then you likely went back in the afternoon, and got water, for the night. And it was heavy, it was hard, and the women of the house usually didn't do it. So the fact that she's the one gathering water suggests she could be a servant. And the fact that Jesus uses the word Baal, which means master, it's not a loving husband. The word for a loving
Right.
husband is Isha. And so that indicates that she could have been a servant or even a concubine. So I'll acknowledge that aspect of it. But there's a little bit of a question mark around the word husband, because it says, you've spoken truthfully, you've in fact had five. But what we also don't take into consideration is the law of the Levirate that was given in Torah. That is in Deuteronomy 24. It's Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 4. And this is the indication of divorce. I'm sorry, Deuteronomy 24 references how a man can divorce his wife. And it
Right.
says that a divorce certificate can be found for any indecency in her. And indecency could have been almost anything. But the number one
Yeah.
indecency would have been that she was not able to have children. And it's a shame, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
not, so we
Yeah.
always say she's at the well because she's full of shame because she's had five husbands. But in fact,
Mm-hmm.
I would propose that perhaps she was ashamed because she
Mm-hmm.
didn't have children, and
She's
she
barren,
was
something. Yeah.
barren. Yeah. And so, also according to the law of the Levirate, which is in Deuteronomy as well, is that if your husband dies, then the family's obligation is for you to marry the next brother or the next closest relative that can redeem you. We've seen this in Ruth. We
Mm-hmm.
saw it with the story of
Right.
Judah, Tamar. And so, there's that. So I would
Mm-hmm.
propose that perhaps instead of being ashamed because she had so many husbands, perhaps she had another type of shame, which could have been barren. And so if you rethink
Yes.
of it that way, husband number one married her and probably divorced her because she was barren. Husband number two, she may have been married again. Husband number two either divorced her or died. Number three could have been a law Levirate marriage. He divorced or died.
Mm-hmm.
Number four, a new marriage could be a Levirate marriage, could be someone else, divorced or died. Husband number five would be interesting. Because either he was a previous husband who could have divorced her, or if she is a servant, because the only thing a married woman could do, a widow or a divorced woman, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you only have a few options. You either remarry according to Levirate law, or honestly, you become a prostitute, or you sell yourself into a servitude at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So if she
Mm-hmm.
was a servant, it was actually against Roman law at that time for Roman servants, slaves, if you will, to be married. And so husband number
Mm-hmm.
five could have been a previous husband, but he couldn't remarry her because of Torah. You can't remarry if you've been married to a second person. And also, if she is
Okay.
considered a servant, she couldn't marry because that would have gone against
Mm-hmm.
Roman law. So we
Right.
have a lot. Like, there's a lot of other
Yeah.
options other